Delegates and students present here. At the very outset, my sincere gratitude and thanks to the organizers of this conference, especially Mr. Bhaskar, Fariza ma'am, for giving me this opportunity to stand in front of this very learned and august gathering to deliver some of the scientific mental health benefits from Buddhist studies. Basically, I am a novice in the area of Buddhist philosophy. I'm sure there are learned expertise here in the audience who can deal with this subject better than me. But nevertheless, whatever spiritual preachings and philosophies and prayers and meditations Buddhism practices, there are definite neuroanatomical, structural and neurological changes that occur in the brain. And those can definitely lead to some of the mental health benefits, and those nowadays are coming up in our psychiatric practices. So basically, I am going to deal in those areas rather than giving my speech more into Buddhist philosophy, which has been dealt extensively by ma'am also yesterday. To start with. As ma'am has already told, it's a 2005-year-old tradition when Prince Siddhartha gave up his luxurious life as a prince and started his journey to become the awakened one and finally reaching the enlightenment stage. He dealt with the four noble truths which ma'am has already dealt with. And the first of is the suffering, which is the pain, the stress, the anxiety and the dissatisfaction which we suffer physically, emotionally and mentally. The second, of course, is the causes of these sufferings, which mainly stem from the cravings we have, the desires in the world we have and the attachment we have. Ultimately, through the third and the fourth truth deals mainly with the ways which we can alienate these sufferings and ultimately reach the extreme stage of bliss or happiness which Buddhist philosophy practices. So what really prompts us to take into this spiritual journey? As His Holiness has already stated that happiness is something that we all aspire to achieve, and of course this is natural and we have the right to fulfill this aspiration. So in search of this extreme happiness and in search of this bliss, we practice certain preachings given by him, we do prayers, we do meditation which Buddhist people follow. So question arises that does these teachings and preachings do have some scientific basis, or can one attain happiness and remove all sufferings through these spiritualisms and meditations? Are there neurological or neuroanatomical changes that takes place through these practices? What are the brain changes that lead us to compassion, kindness, wisdom, love and happiness? And finally, can these spiritual practices help us in attaining a healthy state of mind? Or in a nutshell, do these practices have some psychiatric implications to remove all the mental illnesses people do suffer nowadays? Throughout the next few slides, I'll give a brief description of the brain per se, or what are the structures involved in all these practices. Just to give you a brief idea, the brain has been continuously evolving, and the size of the brain has tremendously increased throughout the ages. You can definitely look at this graph. The current brain of a Homo sapien is about 2 to 3% of the body weight. We have millions of billions of neurons in our brain, and they communicate with each other and form about trillions of networks among themselves through which we gather information, which we exchange information. And one startling coincidence that we have 1,000 million stars in the Milky Way, which is roughly the same number as neurons in our brain.